Hey, Coach, you guys have a lot of new players in this year's team. During the second week of OTAs, as a coaching staff, what are you trying to accomplish?
Well, just continue to increase the communication. Like you stated, a lot of these guys are new, guys that maybe didn't get to participate wholly last year, a lot of new additions this year in free agency, the draft. And so that's the benefit of the offseason is getting out there and doing even just 11 on 11 walkthrough stuff. Forces a lot of communication that guys ask those questions in the meetings, but until you got to get out there on the field and react at live speed, that's something that we really missed last offseason that we're gaining this year.
Are there any new players that have maybe surprised you or jumped out at you this early on in the offseason?
I wouldn't say so. I think everybody so far has been as expected. We thought we were signing some really talented, quality individuals, and that's what's shown up so far. We do our research on every guy we bring into the building, and if there's red flags that we don't like, then we don't bring them in. And so these guys we're excited about, and they've proven that to be true so far in 2 weeks of OTAs.
Coach, a lot of position players we've talked about how the camaraderie is already evident, evolving. And you've drafted guys who were captains, guys who were leaders. Have you been pleased with just kind of seeing that play out on the field?
I have. It is really good energy. That's undeniable. I think everybody who's come in the locker room this year really feels that, and that's translated to the field. And guys are excited to be out there. Coaches are excited to work with them. It's a really good group that you really enjoy being around, and it's had good energy so far.
Thank you.
So what's it like to have Waynes out there? Here's a guy we've been waiting for him for, 14 months. Finally out there, tall, lean guy running around. What's it like to see him finally out there at last?
Yeah, it's really comforting to have. He's a guy we brought here for a reason. I really like his game. Studied him a lot over the years. We played him several times, and then obviously studying him in free agency before we signed him. So it is really nice to get him back on the field. He's seen a lot of football, played a lot of football, similar coverage types to what we have here. So, to the naked eye, it appears to be second nature for me, just watching him get out there and get adjusted to the scheme, finally in person. I'm sure there's some nuances that take some getting used to, but to me, he looks like he's really hit the ground running.
The fact you have three new. Go ahead.
During OTAs, when you're tweaking, thinking about what you might add offensively, defensively, teams, whatever, or it might even delete. Is it done in OTAs? I mean, do you actually take a look at it and see it for the first time on the field, eyes on players, and say, don't really like it as much, or I like this, or tweak that? Does any of that go on during OTAs?
A lot of it happens before OTAs and then some after OTAs, and so you get a chance to work it into what we want to do in all three phases. And then really at the end of OTAs, I think it's something you can reflect back on and say, we can commit to doing more of this in training camp, or maybe that's an idea you put on the back burner. And there are some things in OTAs that are good to put in front of the players so they learn it, they've repped it, and you may not even bring it up until week 7, 8, 9, 10 of the season. And now you have the footage and recollection from some of the guys and something that you did practice in OTAs, and you're bringing it back at midseason. So there's plenty of examples of all that stuff.
Coach, several players have talked about Joe Burrow's zip now, so that ball's moving a lot faster coming out of his hand. Did you notice that right away, or is something just kind of all of a sudden you looked up and like, whoa?
I don't feel it because I'm not the one out there catching it. But I think Joe, it's been fun to watch him because he looks good throwing the football. Obviously he can't do all the movement stuff that he'll be doing, once the season rolls around. But I'm just watching him throw the football. It's the same old Joe.
Is that something y'all can track on his velocity? Is that something y'all can track on catapults, or is that, or do you have sensors in the balls? I mean, how does that? I know Wilson does some of that.
Yeah, I have in my lifetime, not currently, but there are devices that you can use to be able to track that stuff.
Have you guys, when you looked at it, have you guys seen an uptick in miles per hour in that velocity coming out?
We're not currently tracking the ball speed, but I'm saying I have in my life. Yeah.
Any more questions for Coach?
Coach, just making up numbers there for you, Ben, but I held off. Just gonna
No, you're good. No,
numbers and throw them at you just for the heck of it, but I wasn't quick enough on my feet to think back to those combine ball velocity drills that they used to do. Which I don't even know if they still do that anymore, but they used to.
it's been a while since any of us have been to a combine, so who knows what they do these days.
Yeah.
What we saw him throwing. A few of us were out there at the end and saw him throwing from about 40 yards out. What did you make of him? Kind of maybe it looks like he was increasing his distance today. Was that kind of on schedule, on track for what y'all wanted him to do?
Yeah, there's a couple things that he's just continued to work on, and that's not out of the realm of things that he's okay to do right now. So again, he looks better every single day I see him. There's a little more movement there, but certainly the distance stuff is something that's not off limits for him right now. And so I know he's just trying to get reacquainted with some of these receivers and get some extra throws in, and that's been good to see.
What are you working on with JaMarr Chase right now?
Just the nuances of the offense. Troy and Brad both spent a lot of time with him, and individual, and even right as the practice kicked off, just going over some of the details of some stuff as he's getting lined up for the first time. But JaMarr's been impressive. He picks it up really quickly. I know there's probably some new terms that are crossover from some old terms he's had that, like any young receiver, it takes a couple days to get adjusted to. But man, he gets lined up quick. He knows what to do. He's got great hands. He's everything we'd hoped he could be here through just the first couple of practices. But really excited to see when we can actually strap on the pads in training camp and see what his game looks like then.
Zach, pretty quickly in the offseason, you determined, at least to us, that Jonah was going to be your left tackle, at least for 2021, and you hope moving forward. What maybe convinced you in the time you watched him last year that that's his spot?
Some really good tape from last season, and obviously he's had ups and downs from an injury standpoint that have prevented him from really taking off. But when you just go back and you after the season, you watch it as a whole, all of his snaps, he put some really good stuff on tape. And again, he really obviously he doesn't even have a full season of 16 games under his belt. So I think we're going to continue to see steady improvement, working under Frank. And he's a really smart player. And I just think he can really take his game to the next level. And I'm excited to see what he can do.
You spoke a little bit about JaMarr earlier, and TB kind of talked about the versatility that JaMarr brings. Do you feel like there's a good amount of buy-in from JaMarr, and he does kind of give you that option to put him at the X or just kind of move him around in any formation? And what kind of an asset is that to have in that receiver at that spot?
Yeah, I don't think it has anything to do with the buy-in. I think, any receiver wants as many touches as possible. So when you can move him around, that gives him that opportunity. And what I really like about JaMarr is he's got the size and speed to play outside and the physicality. He also has the quickness and the body control to play inside as well. And so it really gives you a lot of flexibility to move all three of those sprouting receivers around. And then you work in, the guys we have behind them, the Auden Tates and the Mike Thomases and all those guys. It really gives us a lot of flexibility as play callers and coaches on offense to move those guys around and on a given concept, put everybody in the best spot possible. That might be JaMarr in the slot on one play and TB outside, and or on another play, big bodies, Auden Tate and T. Higgins inside, on a concept to maximize their height and range. And so it's a lot of fun to work with and gives us a lot of flexibility.
2 more minutes.
Trying to think of the best way to ask this, but is there something that Chase gives you specifically at the X that you maybe didn't have before that allows him to be more flexible?
He's got experience on tape in college. I know he was the X at LSU, but he ended up inside. They did so much empty that when you do that much empty, it's going to put those guys inside. They'd put Clyde, motion him all the way outside to where now Chase becomes the inside receiver and the slot receiver and has to do a lot of the things that we asked TB to do. And so I think just time on task, forget about the fact he's the 5th pick. And so typically with the 5th pick, those guys can do a lot of things, but just time on task. He's played inside before, even though they always called him the X. He's got reps doing that, and it fits right in with things that we ask our guys to do.
Coach, you want competition at every position, obviously every position group and every position, but at the guard position, the offensive line, is that going to be a competitive as a battle as you're going to have raging all training camp?
Yeah, there's a lot of people in there competing, veterans, young players, and you guys have been out there at practice, so you've seen how they're moving them around. And So it's, that's a training camp battle. That'll be a lot of fun. Right now, you're only doing walkthrough stuff against the defense. So most of the stuff is just individual work. And so they get a lot of reps there at left guard, right guard. And that'll be a fun battle to watch.
Last question, Jeff Hobson. I know you've been trying to get in. Go ahead. You're on mute.
That's probably not that good to be the last question, but I know you've been emphasizing Yak, and it seems like Chase's style. He's almost like a running back. Kind of. Can you talk about how you've emphasized Yak and how maybe Chase fits that in his style of play?
He's really strong with the ball in his hands. He's a guy, when you watch his tape, he doesn't go down on first. He reminds me of Gerald Everett. There's a tight end that the Rams had that plays down in Seattle, and Gerald's MO was he never went down on first contact. And JaMarr, watching his receiver tape, seems very similar. That guys have a hard time bringing him down initially. Secondly, the thing that helps with Yak is he has outstanding body control. So a lot of times, initially watching him in routes on air on some of those routes that end up on the sidelines, at first glance, you think he's not running full speed, but really what you realize is he just has really good body control where the ball almost seems to slow down as he's catching it, and now he can get under balance and put his foot in the ground and get up the sidelines without just naturally running out of bounds. So I think the combination of just his size and strength, his play style, his body control, again, all the reasons why you take him the first receiver overall, but that stuff's really going to show up in the yards after the catch that you're mentioning.